Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another Reppy of Liga. I'm Eric and Mark here with you beauties for another installment of Global Power Rankings. Yes, LPL teams finally wrapping up this first round of action. We've got almost everyone on this list actually played a series this week. Can you believe it?
Feels like a very low bar to clear, but unfortunately that's where we're at in 2025 for the competitive League of Legends scene around the world. Hard to find a time where we're all synced up across the major regions, getting all these actions on and where you're at in the stages of the seasons. You know, as you said, the LPL is more or less starting that transition into that playoff type of territory that we're going to go through that bracket. LCK Cup already deciding who's in their finals. The LTA, we're down in Brazil playing it out. You know, LEC, we got the playoffs already rolling. Crazy, wild, busy time in the scene of League of Legends. Always a good time then to check in on the global power ranking.
And we begin with the teams that have been ousted and teams taking their spots. We know Movistar Koi and Team Liquid were bubble 19-20 spots hanging around. You get smashed by Corp, you struggle against an LTA South team, you because IG, the Shy, is smiling, he's having a good time. They're still slowly warming up over on Invictus Gaming, and you've got also a squad like Nongshim who's played 10 series already.
That's the craziest thing, I think, overall. You can look at almost every region, throw in LPL, LAC, LTA, PCL, LCP, whatever you're going to throw in there. They're not going to have the same amount of games that we are already seeing out of this LCK Cup, and specifically a squad like Nongshim, who's pretty much always going the distance in all of their games. Best of 3, best of 5, doesn't matter. They're going that full length in the series. I think it's nice to recognize IG and Nongshim in this type of position. And as you said, IG is the one where there's going to be more attention, more excitement for this team and what they are going to be able to do and the members on it. Still need to see more from them, and that's going to be a very familiar theme as we talk about LPL teams this week.
And a squad who gets popped down a little bit is Talon Esports. Yes, they lost a game to Viking Esports. A quick bump down to the losers bracket for this first stand qualifying series out of them, and they kind of got stomped in the third game against Viking, who obviously a team we're familiar with from the BCS the last year or so, but one series not enough to completely wipe them out of the top 20.
Yeah, and the important thing to keep track of here with this one for Talon is that when you're talking about a squad like Viking, this isn't just some nobody, some upset coming through. This is a squad Viking that is second, third in the league. They are right up there in that competition round. So it's not necessarily something where you're going, this is one that they shouldn't have dropped or whatever type of reasoning. So still holding on to Talon in this type of zone for the LCP.
Yeah, obviously the big debut on this week is ThunderTalk Gaming, and they talk the talk, they walk the walk, whatever you want to say. Obviously riding the high of the big upset against BLG. No, it's not quite enough to ascend them immediately to top 5 status from not being on the board, but let me tell you, the fashion that they won that series, going up to a dominant 2-0 start before getting forced into a game 5, the writing's on the wall, it's a reverse sweep for BLG, and then they proceed to absolutely dumpster the 2-time defending LPL champs? Huh?
It needs to be said that I don't expect ThunderTalk to catch someone off guard the way that they did catch BLG off guard with their level of performance, their execution on what they were able to do on the Rift. You're not going to get that again in the LPL. I think everybody is going to take note from this one, and especially kind of the wording from Bin around not watching any of the VODs or really practicing and preparing specifically for ThunderTalk. Don't think that that's going to be the expectation moving forward with the rest of these LPL teams. And now a little bit of an extra target on your back. You're on the radar of all these LPL teams now. This is where we get to really see what ThunderTalk is made of as we're moving into this next more important, more pressure-packed part of the LPL schedule.
Yeah, and because they got that 3-0 start, they're already in that second life stage where they do get a bump down to losers, even if they end up dropping that opening match to Gen.G. The two squads that took a bit of a dip on this 20-11 zone, we're talking 100 Thieves and Fnatic. 100 Thieves, might seem a little harsh because they won their series. It was 2-0. They didn't lose a game like Team Liquid did. But when you compare to the other LTA teams, FlyQuest and Cloud9 especially, and some of the EU teams, they haven't looked as good, especially over those last couple games. And truthfully, listening to some of the other pros talk about what power level they think at 100 Thieves are at may have influenced us a little bit.
It does. I'll buy in on that one, and from what we're hearing, and that's one of those things where, again, it depends on how much value you're going to put into this, how much validity of it, who you trust as these players, as the sources, and what they're saying. It all combines into it. But basically, at the end of the day, when you're talking about the LTA and what you hear from the various veteran pros around the scene, there's some reason to be concerned or not necessarily fully buy in yet on what you're seeing as far as the on-rift results for this team. I think one of the things that was disappointing for me this week and why they slide back a little bit more is Ayla kind of returned a little bit more so to earth, returned more so back to his regular style of performance that we have seen compared to the past week where it was at an all-time high for him and the 100 Thieves. That's a thing where I think, if he is playing at a higher level, if he is punching above the expectations, this is an 100 Thieves team that can be very dangerous in the LTA.
Let's see them win some games with some cerebral gameplay. That's not just fight here, fight here, fight here, fight here, try and outplay, try and win this team fight that we have absolutely no business taking, but somehow mechanically outplay it. Let's see the cerebral side of things a little more from them. The positive sides, a couple teams climbing here. We look at a pair of stomps when you're talking about Carmine Corp and FlyQuest. Obviously, the competition was a little more difficult for KC going up against Movistar Koi in that all-hands-on rivalry matchup. But again, if you were to compare these teams head-to-head, there's still a lot of unproven young players on KC versus the more established FlyQuest. But not to say KC in this matchup against G2 coming up, the potential is absolutely there for this squad.
We're there, and a player like Kalist can establish himself very quickly as a legend in the LEC with the type of performances that we are seeing, and even more so in these playoff series against Movistar Core. I thought he was phenomenal throughout this one, once again, for the side of Carmine Corp. You do got to give credit, of course, to other members of the team and what they're doing well. I think Vladdy in the mid lane has certainly got to be getting his praise and how he has handled things against expectations. Even Targamas, someone that gets quite a lot of flack and has been under quite the microscope heading into this one. I think that he has served quite a good role for the team and what he's been doing for them. So really excited about Carmine Corp in this position, in this chance and opportunity against G2 in their next matchup, and happy for FlyQuest to be here, because this was a FlyQuest that showed out, performed, and dominated pretty strong, even with Masu being the target of a lot of the attention throughout the pick and ban and the attention throughout the early parts of the game. To set him behind, to not have him in that power position, team was still able to sort things out and find their path to victory.
And yeah, and I think, as we alluded to in previous episodes, Quad was absolutely the guy that stepped in to that role to be, when you have that second 80 carry, as we saw all throughout last year, you lose one, it's okay. We got the backup one to carry us through some of these team fights. But KC, honestly, all 5 members, if you were to do an all-pro list for the LEC, I think all 5 members have been top 3 status in their respective roles so far. Early on in this split, you would have been saying a week ago that Fnatic would have all 5 members, maybe in number 1 when you're talking about all-pro. I know knocking them down because of a series loss to G2 maybe seems a little bit harsh. They didn't win a game, and they were definitely not at the same level in this G2 series that we saw through their first 9 games.
For me, it's as simple as that there has to be a penalty. There has to be a negative effect to losing that series, even with the performance and things that you can be happy about still within that series as Fnatic, and you can build off of as you move through this playoff, bracket stage. For me, with Fnatic, this is the opportunity for the bounce back. This is where you are going to get that little penalty, of course, but it's not necessarily as severe as other losses could be and whatever. And now you are set up with that expectation of, okay, Go down to the losers bracket, retool, figure it out, and show us something good. Show us that power that we're talking about, and you'll be rewarded back up with another little bump in the rankings.
And I think this team still has the confidence to do just that and get another shot at G2 or K-Corp, whoever it ends up being, waiting for them in that final round of this playoff push. We roll into the top 10, and as we kind of alluded to, a little bit of swapping, the old switcheroo going in as Cloud9 takes that mantle now as the top dog from the LTA, and maybe Loud was one of the weaker LTA South teams to match up against, but man, Cloud9 probably even more so than FlyQuest, the most dominant 2-0 on the weekend.
I'm going more so on the positive side of Cloud9 than on the negative for Loud in this one. From what we saw in that series and the dominance shown by this Cloud9 team, it's really kind of starting to see the full flowers bloom from the early sunshine that we had at the start of the year, where you said, okay, I'm seeing something with this team. The potential is there. We already knew about Thanatos in the top side, talked about his potential last year. You're adding in Loki and what he was going to do in the mid lane, and that has worked out. Both of them getting your check marks early in those two important categories. You throw in Blabber, playing more so like the Blabber of old, a bounce back season to whatever varying, degree that you want to quantify it. You're getting that check mark there. And Sven and Vulcan in the bot lane, you're getting an extra check mark, an unexpected check mark with them in that veteran presence and the chemistry that they have brought to this team. Really love Cloud9 this year round and what they've got going early.
And yeah, I think case in point is just as a whole, you talk about the synergy between Vulcan and Sven coming in, the chemistry for the whole team, really. They all seem on the same page. We've heard Blabber talk about it. It's mainly him and Vulcan being the lead voice, whether you want to read into Jojo Pian maybe talk too much last year, whatever it is, the siphoning of information seems to be going a lot more streamlined for Cloud9, and that comes across on the Rift. Absolutely. There's still a couple of spots behind G2 who did the old switcheroo. Fnatic lays out a hand to help up their boys, their fellow brethren of Europe, and G2 grabs the hand, pulls them down, and takes their spot to go into there. Obviously, the players we talk about the least, I feel like we're always glazing over Broken Blade and Caps, but this series against Fnatic was absolutely about the other three members, the two new guys coming in and showing up on the biggest stage.
Yeah, Skewmon in the jungle, playing that type of role around the team, helping facilitate things. Lebrov setting up a lot of the stuff as well. And even down, if you just want to micro manage it, you can go down that 2v2 and you throw Han Sama in there and his role and how they played as that duo down there. You love to see that if you are G2. This is more so the delivering on what feels like the low end of the potential, I think, for this roster a lot of people were looking at. So at least to get that now is one check mark as we're going through this check mark list for a squad like G2. Now they need to do a little bit more. Now is where I want to see them show a little bit more of that power, that finesse, that muscle in what we're talking about. And I think that starts in that mid lane with getting more of a collapse type of performance. I think that's certainly something that can throw G2 over that hump into that next tier of where they're playing. And I already like the experimentation, the willingness to show out these different champions in the top side for Broken Blade. That's always going to be an angle that I think G2 can play up and use as a strength in the LEC.
Sandwiched around G2 are obviously the couple LPL teams stand put. And how about really just quickly touch on Weibo? They go in as a 2 seed from their group, and they at least we're going to play a 2 seed from another group. That's fine. Who did we draw? BLG. We got BLG in the first round.
How does this happen? How does this happen? Only in the LPL. Only in the LPL.
You got ThunderTalked. That's all it is.
Yes. That really is the truth about it, but it more so is about just how crazy the landscape is in the LPL and how uncertain your footing can be. You slip once, you get one little mistake against a ThunderTalk, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself down here, and you're being the nasty surprise for Weibo in the playoffs of the way this one works out.
Lastly, the squad on this list, Gen.G, they get bumped out of the top 5. We're giving them a bit of grace, a bit of leeway, number 1, because they had the curse, if you want to call it, of too long a break. It was over 2 weeks in between their matchup where they got pumped in Game 5 by Hanwha and their last game of the regular season. So they're still alive. They have a bounce back opportunity against Nongshim, but they did not look like the same Gen.G against Hanwha.
No, and it's hard because obviously winning, 3-4 straight domestic titles is going to set quite an expectation on the organization and the players. The expectation was that adding back Ruler, the reuniting of him in onto this team, didn't matter. Duro, that you're going to just be able to drop him in and it's instant, production still from this team. And that hasn't necessarily been the truth, even with all the overwhelming skill and talent on this team. As you laid out, they still have that opportunity for the bounce back to keep improving, keep showing us it this early in the first split. Right now, given how things have gone, how things are with Gen.G, the expectation for me is it's not going to be sorted out. It's not going to hit its prime until we start getting later into that spring split, into that summer split towards the end of the year. For right now, if they're able to figure it out here in this lower bracket before they get that challenge, that fight back against either Hanwha Life or Dplus Kia, this could be it for Gen.G, but right now, very much so on the outside looking in of our top 5 exclusive VIP club.
And it's anyone's legend who high-fives Gen.G on their way out of the door as they don't even play, but they get back into that top 5. T1 being eliminated, still feeling good about them sitting in that 4 spot. But obviously, the headliner on this list was the head-to-head showdown that we just got between Dplus Kia and Hanwha Life. And the quality, the level that series was at, coupled with BLG dropping a series, no question, these are the top 2 teams right now.
Well, anyone's legend should be sliding over a drink to both of Hanwha Life and Dplus Kia at this point, because them playing like that and proving that they are unquestionably, to me, the top 2 teams in the LCK throughout this first split helps bump Gen.G out of that top 5 and keep them out, gets anyone's legend their place in. So absolutely send your thanks over to Dplus Kia and Hanwha Life, and what a series we got from them, going the full distance, all 5 games. You throw in the fearless draft factor and how that changed up the drafts and the compositions and what we got through this one. Absolute banger. Loved this series. And at the end of the day, it's Zeka coming away with another, make that, 5-6 straight game 5 wins for him. That is pretty darn wild.
Yeah, it's an insane clutch factor. I think you're going back to almost 2022, the last time he lost a game 5. Yeah, he's lost best of 5 series, of course, but he didn't get that game 5 buff that we've seen. And now, listen, this gauntlet now that Hanwha Life has done is T1 Gen.G Dplus. I mean, you can't do more than that to earn yourself at the top spot here. But yeah, the back and forth and, again, quality, high-level gameplay that we got in this whole series, again, proves why the LCK is so often looked at as the premier region. And this isn't a matchup without T1 or Gen.G.
Well, you already laid it out, the path that you get to this matchup, winning against T1 Gen.G, and now here you go against Dplus Kia for Hanwha Life. This is that establishing that proof, that verification that this Hanwha Life team is exactly who they were through summer. They are a challenger for that top seed, top title in the LCK. And they've only gotten stronger, adding a player like Zeus to this lineup. And now they're only going to get better as he gets more comfortable, as they figure out exactly his strengths, his weaknesses. How can we match that up with our strategies, with our strengths and weaknesses of this roster? Is something you're going to see from Hanwha Life. And the other part of it is good, is Dplus Kia is right there with them, hanging on, contesting, challenging, and being able to push them, get their own wins in the series that that Dplus Kia is now verified at that same type of level, throwing it all up into the elite bonanza that is the LCK.
And you could talk about, similar paths when you look at the T1 series, and Dplus was in control in this game 5. It didn't come down to an overextending trying to end the game, but it came to a ticking time bomb that was Zeus's Olaf and a pair of team comps. You look at the Mel bot lane and a Kled. Who on this comp is killing an Olaf past 30 minutes?
Nobody. Nobody is the answer. Is what's going on in this one. And yes, this is one of those ones where, maybe put an asterisk on this one. The Olaf pick for someone like Zeus in these series, he clearly has shown that no matter what, goes on in that early game, you're going to hit a point in time where my goal, my opportunity to just run at your carry, delete them, and then maybe you get me, but at least that guy's out of the fight. It's possible, and that is all it takes for a squad like Hanwha Life, and especially with players like Zeka playing at the way he is, Viper. You're certainly going to get to that timeline where Zeus is strong enough to do something. We got to see that one in this one, and unfortunately for Dplus Kia, that spells the end for them in the series.
But honestly, obviously Zeus had another great series, and we see the next level that he has now taken Hanwha Life to in 2025. But shout out to Siwu in this series, going right back to the Ambessa game early on in this series. He did not shy away from this marquee top lane matchup.
No. He was going full on at it. Again, a defending world champion in Zeus and what he has accomplished throughout his career. Very impressive to see that from Siwu. I think, again, he has been a seamless fit into the team for Dplus Kia and how he has been playing, and you haven't really had too many of these green rookie moments from him that you're looking at and penalizing him for. Really love what's going on here with these two top teams from the LCK.
And they might not have won the series, but play of the series absolutely goes to the Viego Zeri 2v4 that Aiming and Lucid pull off in Game 3.
Show that clip to someone who hasn't watched League of Legends in like 4 or 5 years, and they're not going to know what's going on because
is this Earth mode? What's going on?
Zeri's got the movement to be in the positioning of about 3 or 4 other champions throughout this one. Viego can play as 3 or 4 other champions in a team fight. Really thought that was pretty wild. Yes, that has got to be the play of the series. It's not enough to win the one, but of course it is a bit of a fancy play that we want to give a little special shout out to.
I think this series as a whole, whenever we get to these Game 4s and Game 5s, is when people are really screaming, don't take away Fearless Draft. I want more Kled mid to match up against in some of these other spicy picks.
I don't know about the AP Alistar coming through at the end of that one alongside.
Well, Barrel cooks a little too hot sometimes.
Fearless Draft, absolutely. Game 5, best of 5, you know that it's going to be there. We talked about sometimes it's not even just about that this is a champion we haven't seen in so long, whatever. Sometimes it's about that's the composition, that's what you could throw together type of thing. And then, heck, you start to see some synergy, or you start to see, it's maybe this is why Fearless Draft is one of these things. And again, it has been very thrilling to have it and to change things up in the competitive scene.
And we might get a rematch of this series again later on in this playoff bracket. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, beauties. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.